I'd like to ask everyone if they would please bow their heads with me for a moment of silence. Amen. Stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening and welcome to the Murfreesboro City Council meeting, October the 13th, 2011. Council members, our first item on the agenda is our consent agenda. You have a copy of it. If there's anything on your consent agenda that you would like to discuss, we can do that at this time. If not, I will entertain a motion.
Move for adoption of the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second. Call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gelly?
Aye.
Ms. Gales-Harris?
Aye.
Mr. McFarland?
Aye.
Mr. Washington?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bratcher?
Aye. Next, we're to consider for passage on third and final reading an ordinance to rezone an area south of State Route 99, New Salem Highway, to Highway Commercial CH District.
Vice Mayor Bratcher, I omitted this, but wanted to make sure this has no discretion on how I vote or doesn't make a determination, but I do attend World Outreach Church, so just wanted to disclose that.
All righty. Thank you, Mr. McFarland.
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gelly?
Aye.
Ms. Gales-Harris?
Aye.
Mr. McFarland?
Aye.
Mr. Washington?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bratcher?
Aye. Next, consider for passage on third and final reading an ordinance to rezone an area north of State Route 99, New Salem Highway, to Highway Commercial CH District.
Move for approval. Second.
Motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Gelly?
Aye.
Ms. Gales-Harris?
Aye.
Mr. McFarland?
Aye.
Mr. Washington?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bratcher?
Aye. Next, consider for passage on third and final reading an ordinance to rezone an area north of State Route 99, New Salem Highway, and east of Sawyer Green, River Trace, and Case and Grove subdivisions to residential multifamily 16, RM 16 district.
Move for approval. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Gelly?
Aye.
Ms. Gales-Harris?
Aye.
Mr. McFarland?
Aye.
Mr. Washington?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bratcher?
Aye. Next, consider for passage on third and final reading an ordinance to annex an area southeast of the intersection of Barfield Road and State Route 99, New Salem Highway, and to adopt a plan of services, and adopt for same a plan of services.
Move for approval. Second.
Motion and second. Call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gelly?
Aye.
Ms. Gales-Harris?
Aye.
Mr. McFarland?
Aye.
Mr. Washington?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bratcher?
Aye. Next, consider for passage on third and final reading an ordinance to rezone approximately 1.9 acres from single-family residential 15, RS 15 district, and to zone approximately 0.10 acres as highway commercial CH district simultaneous with annexation, located southeast of the intersection of Barfield Road and State Route 99, New Salem Highway, as highway commercial CH district.
Move for approval. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Gelly?
Aye.
Ms. Gales-Harris?
Aye.
Mr. McFarland?
Aye.
Mr. Washington?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bratcher?
Aye. Next, we're to consider for passage on third and final reading an ordinance amending Chapter 25 1/4 signs, Section 25 1/4-5, 25 1/4-6, and 25 1/4-26, dealing with BZA procedures and tenant signs for end and corner tenants.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gelly?
Aye.
Ms. Gales-Harris?
Aye.
Mr. McFarland?
Aye.
Mr. Washington?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bratcher?
Aye. At this time, we are to conduct a public hearing and consider for approval a certificate of compliance for Tushar Otea at Victory Village Liquors and Wine, 4167 Franklin Road, Suite 5A. At this time, we will open the public hearing and ask anyone wishing to speak for or against this particular item to please come to the podium and give us your name and address. Anyone for or against? Not seeing anyone, I'll close the public hearing. We need a motion on that? Hey, council members, what are your wishes?
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bratcher.
Aye. Next, pursuant to Resolution 11-0-R-33, adopted by the City Council on September the 22nd, 2011, we are to conduct a public hearing to consider proposed amendments to Appendix A zoning, Section 2 and 25, dealing with amusement rides. Planning staff is the applicant. Notice of the said public hearing was published in the September 25th, 2011 issue of the local newspaper. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Vice Mayor Bratcher and council members. The only public hearing that the Planning Commission is sending to you today is to consider some changes to our zoning ordinance, and those changes specifically apply to the definition portion of our zoning ordinance and then the uses permitted. Earlier this year, planning staff brought to the attention of the Planning Commission that sometimes some uses like to use carnival rides such as Ferris wheels as a means of advertising for their business, and wanted Planning Commission to direct staff whether that was something that they wanted to be allowed or if we need to clarify in our zoning ordinance that an accessory use of that nature is not permitted. Planning Commission did direct staff to conduct a study, and what you have before you is the recommendation of the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission's recommendation is to add a completely new definition for amusement ride, and that's in your package. And then it's also to amend the definition for carnival to allow amusement ride to be an accessory use in a carnival. And then the third change is to exclude or not allow amusement rides as accessory uses to principal structures. Amusement rides will still continue to be allowed in carnivals where carnivals are permitted, but by adopting these changes, they will not be able to be used as accessory structures. So if you had a grocery store that wanted to use some sort of carnival ride and keep it at their site permanently as a means of advertising, this would not allow that. So this is to clarify what the Planning Commission's intent is. You have before you the draft of the proposed changes. There have been some minor editorial changes made by our legal staff. Other than that, the Planning Commission did recommend approval of all these changes unanimously, and all 7 members were present that evening. If you have any questions about this ordinance, I'd be glad to answer them either before or after the public hearing.
Thank you for that explanation. Are there any questions to Ms. Ely before we open the public hearing?
Cecilia, the best real-life example we can give is probably the Carnival Kia dealership in Hickory Hollow. Their Ferris wheel that's what we're basically talking about.
It is, and it's been in the news, so I think that would be a very good example to all of you and to people watching. I know that there's one in Nashville that has a very large Ferris wheel, and then they wanted to go to Williamson County. Williamson County ended up not allowing it. I think that they called it a sign, but as far as we're concerned, this makes it very clear with these changes, and there's no ambiguity that wouldn't be allowed as an accessory. A Ferris wheel would not be allowed at one of our car dealerships.
Any other questions before we open the public hearing? Thank you, Ms. Ely.
You're welcome.
At this time, I will open the public hearing. I would ask anyone wishing to speak for or against this, please come to the podium and give us your name and address. Anyone? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. Okay. Consider for. You have a question?
I was going to make a motion if you're ready.
Well, I'm fixing to read the agenda. Consider for passage on first reading ordinance 11-0-33, amending Appendix A zoning, Section 2 and 25 pertaining to amusement rides.
So moved.
Now you can do that. We have a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? Call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Washington. Mr. Young.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bratcher.
Aye. Next, consider recommendations of the Planning Commission. Schedule a public hearing to consider proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance as pertain to building heights. You have a copy attached to your agenda. Welcome, Mr. Adelotte.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Bratcher. During its regular meeting on October 5th of 2011, the Murfreesboro Planning Commission considered and recommended approval of amendments to the zoning ordinance as regards building heights. We just need to schedule this for a public hearing. The Planning Commission did unanimously recommend these approval. This change.
Ms. McGannon, do you have a date?
I do. I would suggest November 17th.
November 17th. Did everyone schedule? I'll entertain a motion.
Move we set a public hearing November 17th.
Second.
We do have a second. Call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gelli.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris. Aye. Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Washington. Mr. Young.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bratcher.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Adelot. Next, consider recommendations of the Parks and Recreation Director and the Transportation Director with regards to approval of a professional service agreement with RPM Transportation Consultants, LLC, for the Greenway, Blueway, and Bikeway Master Plan. Welcome, Mr. Goodman.
Vice Mayor Bratcher and members of the City Council, good evening. We do have a request for approval to enter into a professional service agreement with RPM Transportation Consultants, subject to approval from the City Council, for the creation of a master plan for the Greenway, Blueway, and Bikeways for Murfreesboro. The comprehensive citywide master plan will determine the growth and development of those corridors for the next 25 years. The purpose of the plan is to examine and determine the need to develop and expand the Greenway and Bikeway trails and evaluate the opportunities for Blueway routes within Rutherford County with a focus on the urban growth boundaries of Murfreesboro. The master plan will determine where the routes should be developed in order to provide a greater connectivity citywide and alternative transportation and recreation opportunities. The Greenway, Blueway, and Bikeway Master Plan will also outline and prioritize the sections that should be given the highest priority for development. The Master Plan will provide a tool to be used by the staff in the City of Murfreesboro Parks and Recreation, Transportation, Planning, and Engineering Departments, as well as the Greenway Projects Committee and contracted professionals. It will be used to evaluate the impact of the new development on potential Greenway corridors, determine bikeways that will conform with the major thoroughfare plan, and ensure that the needed Greenway right-of-ways are identified so that they can be set aside for future development. It is with that we recommend the contract with RPM Transportation Consultants to develop the master plan for the Greenway, Blueway, and Bikeway in the amount of $85,000, and these funds are allocated in our 2010 capital budget. And Mr. Richardson, I'd be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Council members, any questions?
I have a question.
Mr. Young.
Mr. Goodwin?
Yes.
We have a bike plan, but it's probably, 20 years old?
It's approaching 20 years old.
I still have a
Yes.
copy of it, and
Yes.
I'm afraid to throw it away, but I just wanted to make sure that, can I throw it away now?
Well,
Not yet.
wait till we
Not
get our
yet.
new one, and then you can
Okay.
throw that one away.
Because there's roads that are on the bike plan that aren't even there.
That's exactly right.
That's all I have.
And what we're trying to do is we're actually trying to get ahead of the growth of the city, and if we see corridors that, they're bringing in plats for planning and so forth, then Mr. Adelot can engage them in that. Engineering, when they're looking at new roads or even improvement of roads where we need to add bikeways and so forth, then we can consider those as well. So if we have this plan, it's going to be a great document. It's also something that is required when we start applying for grants.
Sounds great. Any other questions to Mr. Goodman? What are your wishes?
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gelli.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris. Aye. Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Washington. Mr. Young.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bratcher.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Goodman.
Thank you.
Next, we'll consider recommendations of the Water and Sewer Board. Mr. Joe Kirshner, our Director of Water and Sewer. Joe, welcome.
Hey, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. I have several items this evening. You have a lot of material in your agenda, and I'll just highlight those recommendations and certainly answer any questions you might have. First is an engineering services agreement with Little John Engineering. They are providing us support in our database entry formatting for our manhole testing, smoke testing on our sewer rehabilitation. They're able to integrate our database that we have, or the information we have now into our GIS that helps us put together future projects for sewer rehabilitation. The Water and Sewer Board recommends the City Council approve the engineering services proposal from Little John in amount not to exceed $4,000. We expect to come back later with a master services agreement for other elements, but this is the first step.
Okay. Council members, we'll take each one of these individually, and so we will entertain a motion on each individual item.
No questions, Vice Mayor. On item A, I move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for item A. Call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bratcher.
Aye.
Next item B is the SolarBee Beekeeper Service Program. We have SolarBee, which are solar-powered mixing units in water tanks, and they were installed by the manufacturer. These warranties will be expiring in October, and we are recommending that we enter into a extended service agreement, 3-year agreement with payment of a lump sum of $20,145 for the upkeep and maintenance, which is outlined for these tanks. It's important that these tanks have good mixing in those to keep them from stratifying and the chlorine residuals up.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any questions on item B?
Not move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bratcher.
Aye.
Next item is we're recommending the sole source purchase of a chemical to chemically treat the granule activated carbon in our carbon reactors, and hopefully they will regenerate the carbon reactors to help us with removal of trihalomethanes. That's a cost of $16,871.70. If this is successful in our test element here, then we'll go on with the other activated carbon reactors to rejuvenate those. If not, we may be looking at replacement of the media, which is probably $150,000 or so. So this is a look at trying to do something to increase the longevity of its efficiency in removing the trihalomethanes.
Any questions? For item C.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bratcher.
Aye.
The board recommends to the council the purchase of a GlobalCare complete support for the water treatment plant supervisory control and data acquisition system, or SCADA. It's known as GE iFix. This was developed by GE, and the software and support is provided by them. We initially purchased all the software and the hardware for the controls at the plant in the recent expansion, about $1.39 million of instrumentation. This would give us 24/7 support on that mission-critical software. The Water and Sewer Board recommends to approve the purchase of the support system in the amount of $16,927.50.
Any questions about item D?
Well, he really has no choice. He's got to do this right here, so I move for approval.
We have a motion.
Second.
A motion and a second. Call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bratcher.
Aye.
The final items are really three to that. If you recall, several years ago, we implemented a construction crew to do sewer rehabilitation, get sewer into areas that weren't sewered, that had been in the city for many years, and just doing more work more effectively with our own crews. In order to enhance that with our crews, we're requesting 3 pieces of equipment. We took bids for an asphalt paving machine, and the Water and Sewer Board recommends the low bid from from Power Equipment, and this is a small paving machine. It's not the large ones that you see for the roads, but this would help us to put as much as 9-foot wide pavement down. Right now, we do all that by hand, and that's what gets kind of wavy, so this will help that be more smooth. It's $84,500, includes a warranty for 1 year, and then we recommend the purchase of an extended warranty in the amount of $2,305. This would be funded from the reserves.
All right, any questions?
I guess that was so we do have this budgeted in this fiscal year?
No, this is something we're taking from our reserve.
Okay.
These are larger items that we don't normally would take from an annual budget.
Right.
There's funds on hand.
This is basically to repave where you do street cuts and things like that?
Yes, sir.
But, Joe, it is the type of item that we at the Water and Sewer Board and Department have tried to raise those reserves to be able to accommodate when we need to make purchases like this.
We keep a sinking fund for these type items. We do. These were contemplated. They're not a surprise. We've been talking about this for some time.
That said, I'll move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll. Ms. Wright?
Mr. Gelly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Washington. Mr. Young.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bratcher.
Aye.
Next is a dump truck. We received 5 bids for a dump truck, and the Water Sewer Board recommends accepting the bid from Mack of Nashville, which is the bid that met the specifications and as to quality and type of machinery. This is also including an optional warranty. This is $118,792. The others did not meet the certain minimum elements that we put into the bids, and would recommend that meets those specifications.
Any questions?
What's the life expectancy of this truck, approximately? Do you know?
Well, we have one truck that's a 1999 model, so it's, as long as we don't wear it out. They're low. I wouldn't say low mileage, but probably the 99 model has 100,000 miles on it. So it's more age than mileage, I think, on the truck.
Thank you.
No other questions, Vice Mayor. I move for approval.
Second.
Motion and second. Call the roll. Ms. Wright?
Mr. Gelly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Washington. Mr. Young.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bratcher.
Aye.
The next item is the larger piece of equipment. This is a Traco. It's an excavator that's on tracks. This is a larger unit than we have now. We'll use the other unit we have now for relegate it to smaller duty, to more shallow cuts. This will help us do more demanding work. And the Water and Sewer Board recommends award to Thompson Machinery in the amount of $186,638,000, which includes a 5-year warranty on the engine and machine. It's further recommended we accept the optional 3-year extended warranty after the first year for $3,313 in the optional bucket of $7,532 for a total of $197,485. Would note that my table, there's a typo. It says optional 5-year. Should be 3-year. The text is correct.
How is this funded, Mr. Kirshner?
Pardon me?
How is this funded?
These all are funded from our working capital,
Okay.
as we did the initial equipment we purchased.
And this type of equipment is what allows your team to be able to do work in-house as opposed to continually contracting.
We
certain
estimate
projects
we
out.
save as much as 50% of the cost of a project by doing it ourselves, and we're able to do it more timely and pull off and go to another area when there's a high demand somewhere. If there's a special something that's gone on that needs to be done quickly, we're able to react to that. We can't do it all. We're limited in just over the time of the year, how much work we can do unless we would add more people, more equipment, and things of that nature. But this has been very successful, and we've saved a lot of money over the years by having these people in place, and they're extraordinary. They do an excellent job.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Washington. Mr. Young.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bratcher.
Aye.
The next item is stormwater related in that there is a Malloy Lane water quality pond that's recommended for contract. We received 2 bids. The low bid was Rollins Excavating for $143,549. Water and Sewer Board recommends awarding the contract to the low bidder, and this is from the Stormwater Capital Improvements Projects.
Any questions?
No questions. I move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bratcher.
Aye.
The next item is engineering contract. We anticipate there being activity at the intersection of Veterans Parkway and Franklin Highway with properties, and there's some impediments to the economic development of that area because of the sewer line having to cross the creek and getting it to those corners and then getting under the Highway 96 in Veterans Parkway. We think it's prudent to go ahead with the design of the sewer line, anticipating that something will happen in the near future. This is a contract with SEC Engineering for the amount of $12,250 to do their engineering. And also there's a draft agreement that we have in there to show you that there's some consideration possibly of participation if that comes to fruition. If not, we will have the design done so we can have better estimates and idea of what's going to happen, and those in the area can make better decisions on their economics of their projects.
Any questions, Mr. Kirshner?
I'll move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bratcher.
I abstain.
Next item is a engineering agreement with Seckman Reid to do an arc flash study. And this is basically for employee safety. If you're interested, I would suggest you go to the internet and look at YouTube at arc flash. It is some very frightening video of the danger when you open an electrical panel in an industrial setting. And this is something that we think we need to do for employee safety and requirements of OSHA coming up. And we recommend that we enter into an engineering service agreement with Seckman Reid to do our study in the amount of $19,865. We expect this to be expanded to the remainder of our pump stations and the plants, but we're looking at our most, I guess, critical areas right now that we think would be most liable, most risk management in.
Okay. Any questions, Mr. Kirshner, about this item?
I'm very familiar with what he's talking about.
It's scary. People, I mean, just a white flash arc across and hit
Doesn't take
somebody
much.
and burn them. It's terrible.
Move for approval.
Thank you. Have a motion and a second. Call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bratcher.
Aye.
The final is we recommend the termination of our contract with Flat Rock Construction Company due to the bad health of the owner, single operator. He's unable to fulfill his requirements, and we would recommend that we terminate that contract without any damages or breach of contract. We have requested Rollins Excavating under their annual contract to perform that work.
Any questions?
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bratcher.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Perkins. Next, we are to consider any beer permit applications.
We do not have any tonight.
All righty. Next, we'll consider the payment statements. And council members, you do have a new list of statements on our desks. Give you a second to look over those, then we'll entertain a motion.
Vice Mayor, hearing no questions, I move that we pay the bills.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bratcher.
Aye. Next, board and commission appointments. I don't see any on my desk. Mr. Lyons, do you have any?
No, sir.
All righty. Next, we consider any other business come before the council, either from the council or staff.
Vice Mayor, I do have one item. You will recall about 2 weeks ago, we considered the first step in a fast-track infrastructure grant application. This evening, I asked for your approval of Resolution 11R23, which is the second step in that process. What this resolution would enable us to do is to file an application and the required certifications for an infrastructure project for economic development investment by Project Tango in our community. As you can see in the resolution, this would support a investment of $5.1 million of infrastructure for that project. The funding for this fast-track grant would come from either the state of Tennessee or the company, so there isn't any city money at the completion of this grant project, but we would ask for your approval.
Are there any questions, Mr. Lyons, concerning this request?
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, Ms. Wright.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bratcher.
Aye. Any other business come before the council?
No, sir.
Mr. McFarland?
I just want to make a comment. This weekend will be the 5th year of the Murfreesboro Half Marathon. Starts on Saturday morning, 7 o'clock, bright and early. Mr. Gilly's running, so all the racers will be there with their jello molds and everything ready to roll. So anyway, but come out and see them. And I will say that as the transportation director is sitting out there, that the residents will want to stay away from the downtown area, Rutherford Boulevard, Lascassas Highway, that whole area from really about 6 o'clock in the morning till 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock will be closed off or extremely congested. So
Or to when Toby gets through about 4?
about 4, yeah. Look for the ambulance.
I'll be looking.
Any other announcements from the council? Any other business? Seeing none, we stand adjourned.